Where are you, my love? I've asked this question 1,000 times in my mind, and each time the world feels a little quieter, a little emptier, as if the spaces you once filled are now holding echoes of your laughter, your warmth, your presence. I carry your absence with me, not as bitterness, not as anger, but as a gentle ache, a reminder that love leaves marks that never fully fade. I've walked these streets, the same streets we once walked together, hoping the wind might carry a whisper of you, a memory that bridges the distance between what we had and what we lost. And in the quiet of the night, I realize love isn't just about finding someone. Love is about holding them in your heart, even when they're not there. I want to tell you that it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be lost. We all are, at some point. And yet love asks us to show up anyway, to keep trusting, even when the path is unclear, even when the world seems to have moved on, even when we're unsure if we'll ever find each other again. So I whisper this into the night, where are you, my love? And I hope you are searching too, because love, real love, isn't something you find once. It's something you carry, something you nurture, something you return to over and over without asking for certainty, without needing proof. It simply is, and that is enough. Love is not a feeling that comes and goes with the tides, nor is it a spark that ignites and burns briefly, leaving only ashes in its wake. True love, the kind that quietly endures the trials of life, begins as a choice before it ever becomes a feeling. It is the deliberate act of showing up, even when your heart is weary, even when your mind is full of doubt, even when your world seems to conspire against the delicate bond you are nurturing. Commitment is not a word to be whispered lightly, nor a promise to be etched casually on social media. It is a living, breathing responsibility, one that demands patience, humility, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability without fear. When we commit to someone, we are committing not only to their joy, but also to their struggles, to the unseen burdens they carry, and to the growth they are still discovering in themselves. Love as commitment is not a contract of convenience. It is a covenant of trust, a sacred agreement that we will meet each other at the intersection of imperfection and hope again and again. It asks us to acknowledge that we are not infallible, that we will falter, that our own fears and insecurities will sometimes cloud our judgment, and yet, despite all of this, we will choose to keep returning to the same person with an open heart. To love someone in truth is to recognize that their journey is not ours to control, yet our presence can be a quiet strength that guides, supports, and reassures. It is to listen with intent, to speak with honesty, and to act with consistency, even when the world seems to reward drama and grand gestures more than steady loyalty. In the quiet spaces between conversations, in the mundane routines of daily life, love manifests not in fireworks but in small, intentional acts. The way you remember their favorite meal, the patience you show when tempers flare, the gentle touch when words fail, the decision to forgive quickly and without resentment. Commitment is forged in these unremarkable moments, in the choices to prioritize the other's well being alongside your own, to accept their flaws without wishing them away, and to stand steadfast when storms come, knowing that storms do not define the permanence of your bond, but test its resilience. A committed love does not demand perfection. It demands presence, it demands courage, and it demands an unwavering dedication to growth, both individually and together. To truly understand love, one must understand that it is not the absence of conflict that defines it, but the willingness to navigate conflict with empathy and grace. Heartbreak and disappointment are inevitable, for humans are imperfect, and life is inherently unpredictable. Yet commitment teaches us that disappointment is not the end, but a signal to engage with gentleness, to communicate openly, and to seek understanding rather than blame. Love asks us to listen more than we speak, to validate before we judge, and to offer comfort before we critique. It reminds us that our partner's pain is not a reflection of our failure, but an opportunity to exercise compassion, to extend patience, and to deepen the bond through mutual support. In a world obsessed with instant gratification and fleeting pleasures, choosing to stay committed, to remain patient, and to cultivate trust is a radical act of courage. Trust is the foundation of any lasting love, and it is built slowly, day by day, through consistency in words and actions. A committed relationship thrives on transparency and vulnerability, not on manipulation or avoidance. It is the willingness to say, I am scared, or I was wrong, or I need you, without shame, and to meet each admission with grace rather than judgment. Love as commitment demands the surrender of ego, not as submission, but as humility, not as weakness, but as strength. It teaches that true power lies not in control, but in understanding, not in winning arguments, but in fostering harmony, not in perfection, but in authenticity. When we love deeply, we learn that our partner to reflect our desires, nor a puzzle to be solved, nor a possession to be kept. They are a fellow traveler, a soul to be honored, a life to be witnessed with reverence and care. Commitment means that we accept the entirety of who they are, their past wounds, their unhealed scars, their dreams still unfolding, and we choose to invest in their growth without attempting to rewrite their story to suit our expectations. It is an active choice to prioritize connection over convenience, intimacy over indifference, and respect over resentment. Love asks us to stay present even when the heart drifts, to nurture closeness even when distractions abound, and to offer kindness even when patience feels thin. It is the courage to love not only in moments of bliss, but also in moments of uncertainty, fatigue, and frustration. It is choosing, day after day, to return to the one who matters most, not out of obligation, but out of profound reverence for the shared journey. A committed heart does not demand constant proof of affection, for it understands that love is expressed in the rhythm of daily life, the quiet assurance of a hand held at the right moment, the soft reassurance of a gaze that says, I see you, I am here, I will not leave. Commitment also requires self-awareness, for we cannot truly honor another without first honoring ourselves. We must confront our fears, our insecurities, our unmet needs, and our unspoken expectations, so that our love is not a projection of deficiency but a reflection of wholeness. In recognizing our own shadows, we gain the clarity to approach our partner with empathy rather than defensiveness, patience rather than irritation, and encouragement rather than judgment. Real love is not self-sacrificial to the point of rancor. It balances giving with boundaries, devotion with self-respect, and intimacy with individuality. It recognizes that the health of the relationship is intertwined with the well-being of each participant, and that nurturing oneself is an essential component of nurturing the bond. True commitment thrives not on words alone, but on consistent action, on small yet deliberate choices that signal reliability, respect, and attentiveness. It flourishes when each partner feels safe to be authentic, to express vulnerability, and to pursue growth without fear of abandonment. Love does not rigidly cling to expectations or timelines. It adapts with grace, evolves with time, and withstands the inevitable changes of life because its roots are planted in trust and understanding rather than superficial desire. It is not measured by grand gestures or fleeting passions, but by the enduring willingness to stand beside someone, even when circumstances are difficult, even when dreams diverge, and even when the glow of romance is replaced by the quiet warmth of companionship. Commitment is a journey, not a destination. It is a continuous choice to be patient when mistakes are made, to be forgiving when wounds surface, and to be resilient when external pressures threaten to shake the foundation. It teaches that love is not an emotion to be possessed, but a practice to be lived. It reminds us that we cannot control the future, that life will bring uncertainties, and that the path will sometimes be strewn with obstacles. Yet through all of this, love sustains because it is grounded in intention, respect, and presence. To commit is to see the entirety of a person, their flaws, their struggles, their unspoken fears, and to respond not with criticism, but with support, not with judgment, but with patience, not with withdrawal, but with engagement. It is to recognize that love is not ownership, but partnership, not domination, but unity, not pretense, but authenticity. And in this recognition, we find freedom, the freedom to love fully, to be loved deeply, and to grow together in ways that honor both individuality and connection. Love as commitment is not always glamorous. It is often quiet, mundane, and unremarkable to the outside eye. Yet it is in this quietness, in the consistency, in the steadfastness, that its true power resides. It is the anchor in turbulent times, the refuge in moments of doubt, and the gentle reminder that even when the world feels unsteady, there exists a bond that is patient, loyal, and unwavering. Those who understand this love carry it with grace. They understand that it is not always easy, that it is not always comfortable, and that it often asks for humility, courage, and endurance. Yet they also know that the reward is immeasurable, the quiet joy of seeing another person flourish, the serene confidence of knowing you are trusted and cherished, and the profound sense of purpose that arises from being committed not only in word but in deed. Love as commitment is the art of choosing someone every day, even when emotions fluctuate, even when life presents challenges, even when it would be easier to walk away. It is choosing the long, winding path of growth together rather than the fleeting shortcuts of convenience or comfort. It is the quiet acknowledgement that the deepest love is forged not in passion alone, but in patience, understanding, and unwavering dedication. And when we embrace this truth, when we allow ourselves to truly see the depth and responsibility of love, we discover a richness and a resilience that transcends circumstance, a love that is not temporary, fragile, or conditional, but enduring, steadfast, and soul deep. It is in this way that love becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a practice, a commitment, a sacred trust between two people who have chosen, against all odds, to walk together, to grow together, and to face life not as isolated souls, but as partners bound by intention, respect, and an unshakable faith in the value of the shared journey. And in that choice, repeated day after day, love is found not in the fleeting moments of pleasure, but in the steadfast devotion, the quiet courage, and the tender, persistent presence that signals to each other, without words, "I am yours, I will not leave." And that, above all, is the truth about love and commitment. It is not the easy path, nor the grand spectacle, nor the fleeting passion, but the enduring, patient, humble, and unwavering choice to be present, to be loyal, and to love fully through all the trials, all the doubts, and all the unspoken fears, with a heart that is willing to remain open, honest, and faithful, because the depth of love is measured not by what it promises in the moment, but by what it sustains over a lifetime. Healing in love is rarely linear, rarely neat, and it is never instantaneous. It begins in the quiet acceptance of our own pain, in the willingness to sit with discomfort instead of fleeing from it, and in the understanding that heartbreak is not a failure, but a teacher, a mirror that reflects both our vulnerabilities and our resilience. To heal is to confront the echoes of past wounds without judgment, to acknowledge the cracks in our hearts without shame, and to recognize that every scar carries a story of endurance, courage, and the capacity to love again. Forgiveness, too, is not a single act, but a journey, often winding and uneven, and it is less about absolving the other person than it is about freeing ourselves from the weight of resentment. To forgive is to release the bitterness that chains us to moments we cannot rewrite, to embrace the truth that holding on to anger prolongs suffering, and to reclaim space in our hearts for love that is generous, present, and unburdened. Choosing someone daily is an extension of both healing and forgiveness. It is the conscious decision, repeated in small acts and quiet gestures, to invest in a person not out of habit or convenience, but out of reverence for the bond shared and the trust nurtured. It is choosing to communicate when it is difficult, to listen when words are scarce, to remain patient when frustrations arise, and to offer empathy even when our own hearts are weary. Love is not merely a feeling to be felt once, then taken for granted. It is a practice, a discipline, a deliberate return to one another, even when fear, fatigue, or past disappointments whisper that we should turn away. In this practice, we come to understand that true intimacy is not born of perfection, but of presence, not of flawless understanding, but of consistent effort, and not of unbroken harmony, but of the courage to navigate dissonance together. Healing requires honesty with ourselves, a willingness to face our shadows, to recognize our own patterns of hurt and avoidance, and to take responsibility for the ways we may have unintentionally contributed to pain. It asks us to acknowledge that we cannot force another person to meet our expectations, that control is an illusion, and that true love flourishes only when each soul is granted the space to grow authentically. Forgiveness is strengthened by empathy. It is cultivated when we attempt to see the world through the other's eyes, to imagine the fears and pressures that shape their choices, and to respond not with accusation but with compassion. Choosing someone daily is perhaps the most courageous act of all, because it requires vulnerability, patience, and the continual risk of being hurt again. It is the recognition that love is not a guarantee of safety, comfort, or certainty, but a commitment to stay present, to nurture connection, and to prioritize trust above transient feelings. In practicing this, we learn that relationships are not sustained by grand declarations alone, but by the small, intentional acts that communicate devotion, a hand held in silence, a kind word offered in tension, a shared glance that says, "I am still here. I see you. You matter." Healing and forgiveness also teach us humility, reminding us that we are all imperfect, that mistakes are inevitable, and that growth often requires patience with ourselves as much as with the one we love. They invite us to release unrealistic ideals of romance and embrace love as it is: messy, beautiful, demanding, and profoundly human. In this space, choosing someone daily becomes a sacred practice, a rhythm of attentiveness, respect, and loyalty that transcends mere emotion. It is an acknowledgement that relationships are living entities, requiring care, reflection, and intentionality, and that love cannot survive if left unattended or taken for granted. We discover that the act of returning to one another, even after conflict, hurt, or misunderstanding, is itself an expression of reverence and trust. To choose someone daily is to cultivate resilience in both hearts, to honor the shared history while remaining open to the possibilities of growth, and to recognize that love is strengthened not in moments of ease, but in the conscious decision to stay committed when life challenges us most. Healing teaches patience, forgiveness teaches empathy, and the daily choice to love teaches us courage to remain vulnerable, to speak honestly, to listen deeply, and to offer ourselves fully, even when it would be safer to protect our hearts. In doing so, love transforms from a passive experience into a dynamic, living practice, capable of withstanding uncertainty, weathering storms, and enduring the tests of time. It reminds us that intimacy is nurtured through presence, trust is built through consistency, and loyalty is demonstrated in the unspoken moments that shape our shared life together. Love as a daily choice affirms, connection is not a fleeting spark, but a continuous flame, one that requires tending, respect, and mindful attention. And in this ongoing practice, we find that true love is both humbling and empowering, quiet yet profound, fragile yet resilient, a force that asks us to grow, to heal, to forgive, and to return to the one we cherish over and over again, with hearts open, intentions pure, and souls aligned in the shared pursuit of deeper understanding, mutual care, and enduring devotion.